across sections of the plains and into the Great Lakes. Well, just in the last week, thousands of homes have been severely damaged or destroyed by those powerful tornadoes, even seeing damage because of the strong winds. So that alone begs the question, can we build homes to better survive severe weather? And joining us to talk about that is David Prevatt, an engineering professor at the University of Florida. You know, I think, Professor, a lot of people have the perception that these tornadoes are just going to devastate the home. There's nothing you can do about preventing the damage or the destructions. But what is the reality that you find?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. The reality is this: since 2011, when I started my work with my team in tornadoes, we have learned so much that tornadoes are something that we can design for. Firstly, the EF4 tornado only tells us what happens at the maximum point, right in the track of the storm, but the wind speeds reduce as we get away from that storm center. That means that there are thousands of buildings, probably in 80% of the tornado track, that never see EF4 winds, and so we can design strong buildings to resist them.
David, as the recovery begins in the places that have just been impacted, how, as people rebuild, can maybe entire communities rebuild to better withstand the next tornado and do it affordably?
Well, Rick, this is the point that we're at. This is an inflection point right here where a community can come together and decide that we want to have adequate tornado resilient housing for our entire community and put it in place now. Many engineers, and including those at the IBHS, they have in place fortified housing design structures ready to go that we can use today to replace the inadequate housing that exists with better tornado resilient housing for the future.
And David, from an engineering perspective, what are the main components of a home or other building that give it the most advantage against a tornado?
Indeed, we talk as engineers about the vertical and lateral load paths. This is, we connect the roof to the wall, to the foundation with a complete strap that mechanically binds things into the ground. In addition, we talk about the lateral load path so that we have diaphragms in the roof and shear walls in the wall so that these things resist the push of the house. This is what is missing in all of the housing that is failing today, last week, last year, 50 years ago.
We talked about new construction. What about somebody in a surrounding community who says, I would love to make my home more resilient. However, I would imagine the cost is too high. Are there ways to do this cost effectively?
Well, first of all, I would push back on whether the cost is too high. How much is the cost for your safety? This is a question that communities have to answer. What is too high? However, that said, there are specific details, roof-to-wall connections, for instance, better roofing and newer roofing, and wall-to-foundation connections. They are more difficult to do in an existing residential structure because, of course, you have to remove the drywall and other things and repaint and so on and so forth, but it's not impossible, okay? So that the notion is that we can always get to this and do it the right way.
Well, engineering professor David Prevatt, we thank you so much for joining us. University of Florida, some great information. I think a lot of communities, a lot of homeowners are going to be thinking about doing this right now. Chris.
Thank you.
I will still ahead next.